Madame Normandin.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I don't intend to take a lot of time because I am also part of those who would like for us to move to a vote. But I would still like to come back to certain comments that I heard today. I think it's relevant to do that in order to reframe the debate. One of the things that I heard a lot today, and which I find confusing, is that NSICOP is the best forum to do the work, as though we needed to put in opposition the work of NSICOP and an independent inquiry and PROC. There doesn't need to be opposition between these three entities. This work could be complementary. Here we're debating Katie Delford so that she can come testify on what she knew and what she did with what she knew. Some mentioned this today, that it wouldn't be her first time testifying. She came when there was the cases of sexual misconduct in the Department of Defense, and she testified on Jonathan Vance. And you might remember she mentioned that she had not advised the Prime Minister of the information that she had received. And in that context, in the context where our Liberal colleagues are talking to us about departmental responsibility, well, there's a question to ask. How can there be that accountability if a Prime Minister is not made aware of a situation? That in itself raises questions. And that justifies that we invite Ms. Telford, because there are two reasons for this. Either the Prime Minister knew what happened, and so the actions taken are problematic, and then we could invoke departmental accountability. But if the Prime Minister didn't know, well, then we have to examine issues of internal governance. And in both cases, it is important to shed a light on what happened, and that's the goal of having a public inquiry so that we could change our way of doing things in the future. The idea here is to shed a light on any shortcomings that could have occurred so that these mistakes aren't made again. Unfortunately, what we're seeing now is that it takes media coverage, it takes news for things to move. For example, the Chinese police stations. We're seeing more and more information on this, and we're seeing different levels of government that are working so that these police stations can no longer be funded. Well, it's important to shed a light on what's happening. That way, there's an obligation for us to act, because if it stays secret, well then, nothing will be done, as was the case in 2019 and 2021. We have information that needs to be validated. And for partisanship now, that's the other argument that we've heard, that the opposition is playing cheap political games. I would say that it's the opposite, actually, that is true. And I just want to highlight the Conservatives' position. I don't always agree with their way of doing things, which is a bit more abrasive than what I prefer, but it's at the end of the day a matter of taste. But they are for a public inquiry, and I heard a bunch of arguments on a public inquiry. The committee already voted on this, that there should be one, so we don't have to come back to this. But the Conservatives voted in favor of a public inquiry, even though there was information in the media that some of their candidates could have a link to this foreign interference. So this could be not so beneficial for them. If that's not nonpartisan, I don't know what is. The only people playing political games seem to be the Liberals. They are continuing to undermine the trust of Canadians in democratic institutions and in the Liberal Party. I think that they are causing themselves problems where we could now vote on a motion to invite Katie Telford or to not invite Katie Telford. We could amend the motion to reduce the number of hours. But it seems that you don't want to invite her at all. You can propose other things if you think that 3 hours is too long, instead of talking about a bunch of things that have nothing to do with inviting Katie Telford. So let's shed a light on all of this as quickly as possible for Canadians and in order to help maintain their trust in public institutions which we all represent. I will stop here and give the floor to the next person.
Merci, Madame Normandin.
Thank you, Ms. Normandin.